Matt LaFleur is a heck of a coach. There's no denying it. He's brought stability, offensive firepower, and a sense of identity to the Green Bay Packers that was sorely needed after the end of the McCarthy era. But there's one thing about his tenure that's both curious and a little bit concerning. He doesn't have a coaching tree, at all, and that's not entirely his fault. But it's a reality that carries real implications for both his legacy and the future of the Packers. Now, before we go any further, let's clarify something. Nathaniel Hackett absolutely counts as part of LaFleur's coaching tree. He was his offensive coordinator. He got head coaching opportunities. The fact that he flamed out in Denver and didn't last in New York doesn't erase the fact that he was plucked from LaFleur's staff. But let's be honest, Hackett wasn't hired in those places because of his offensive genius. He was hired because of his relationship with Aaron Rodgers in both cities. It was a chess move to land the quarterback, not a strategic hire based on scheme or vision. Still, players in Green Bay loved Hackett, coaches loved Hackett, and the Packers' offense was elite under his guidance, so he gets credit, but he's also kind of a special case. That brings us back to the larger issue. Matt LaFleur, despite being a good head coach and even better offensive mind, hasn't had his assistants explode into head coaching stardom the way guys like Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan have, and that makes you wonder, is it because LaFleur hasn't hired the right guys? Or is it because his assistants just don't get the same kind of spotlight or media love? Take a guy like Mike Tomlin. The man's basically a lock for the Hall of Fame, and yet his coaching tree is also surprisingly thin. Why is that? Well, maybe because when the whole program runs through one person, there's not much room for assistants to shine, and that might be the case in Green Bay too. LaFleur is the offensive mastermind. He calls the plays. He installs the system. He sets the tone. So when someone like Luke Getsy or Adam Stenavich gets a shot at a bigger role, it's not like they're stepping out of LaFleur's shadow. They're still in it. And look, Getsy did get a shot in Chicago. Didn't go great, but it wasn't entirely on him either. That situation was a mess from the top down. And Stenavich, he's a respected name. He's been mentioned in coordinator searches. He might eventually land a top job, but none of these guys have broken through yet, and that's kind of the point. Now, here's where things get tricky for LaFleur. It's not just that he hasn't produced a coaching tree. It's that some of the hires he's made have actively hurt the team. Let's talk defense. Because for years, the Packers' biggest Achilles heel wasn't Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs or the offensive line. It was the defense, specifically. It was the inability to hire the right people to run it. First, there was Mike Pettine. Kept on from the McCarthy era. That felt more like a front office decision than a LaFleur call. But it still counts. Then came Joe Barry, and if we're being honest, that never really worked. The Packers under Barry were constantly underachieving. Soft coverages, blown assignments, bad tackling, and a run defense that just never got better. What made it worse? LaFleur had to get more involved. That's not what you want as a head coach. You hire a coordinator to run their side of the ball so you can focus on your specialty and the big picture, but instead, LaFleur found himself stepping into defensive meetings, trying to plug holes because the guys he hired couldn't get it done. And this is where the lack of a coaching tree becomes more than a curiosity. It becomes a liability, because it points to a broader issue. LaFleur might not be great at hiring coaches outside of his comfort zone. On offense, sure, he's got a good eye. He's elevated guys like Getsy and Stenavich, but on defense, on special teams, that's where the Packers have lagged behind. When they finally brought in Jeff Hafley, it felt like a pivot. A chance to bring in someone with a vision, someone who could run their own program. Hafley was a head coach at Boston College. He had a clear identity, and more importantly, it seemed like LaFleur was ready to let him do his thing. No hand-holding. Just install your system and go. It's reminiscent of what Sean McVay did when he brought in Wade Phillips. That hire changed the whole culture of the Rams' defense. Then he moved to Brandon Staley. Then Raheem Morris. Continuity, identity, and success. That's the model. LaFleur hasn't quite followed it, at least not until now, and maybe part of the reason is structural. The Packers front office has had a say in coaching hires. Remember, they reportedly missed out on a top special teams coach early in LaFleur's tenure because they didn't want to pay up. That's not on LaFleur. But it does mean that the coaching staff, especially the parts outside of the offense, haven't always been entirely his call. Still, the buck stops with the head coach. And if you're cycling through defensive coordinators and special teams guys every couple years, that's a problem. It's not about whether those coaches went on to get promotions elsewhere. It's about whether they were even good enough in the first place. And that brings us back to the idea of a coaching tree, because yeah, it's cool to say you've got branches all over the league. But the real value of a coaching tree is what it says about your ability to identify and elevate talent. And he redid it in Philly and now in Kansas City. Bill Walsh, his tree shaped the league. Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, they've had assistants become head coaches all over the place. Some succeeded, some didn't, but the point is, they had the eye to hire them in the first place. LaFleur hasn't shown that yet, and again, maybe that changes. Maybe someone like Stenavich makes the leap. Maybe Hafley turns the defense around and gets a shot somewhere. But right now, the Packers' success feels like it rests a little too heavily on LaFleur's shoulders. And that's a dangerous place to be in the long run. Now, here's the upside to all this. If you're not losing assistants every offseason, you get continuity. The Packers' offensive staff has been together for a while now. Stenavich, Getsy before him, Butkus. There's been a real sense of cohesion. That's valuable, especially when you're bringing in a young quarterback. Like Jordan Love, you want those voices in the room to be consistent. You want the message to be clear, but continuity only matters if the people you're keeping are good. That's the key. You're not getting rated by other teams if your coaches aren't the kind of people other teams want, and for a while, that's been the issue in Green Bay. The staff has been too comfortable, too insulated, and not impactful enough to attract outside attention. That needs to change. We're starting to see the early signs that it might. Hafley's hiring was bold. It signaled a shift. It said, we're done with the passive, bend don't break style. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to dictate. And early returns on that move have been positive. The defense is playing faster, tackling better. And they're finally showing signs of becoming a unit that can win games, instead of just surviving them. But again, it all comes back to the head coach. If LaFleur wants to build a legacy that lasts beyond wins and losses, he's going to need to do what the greats have done. Find and develop the next generation of coaches. Because that's what real program builders do. They don't just win games, they create leaders. They send their guys out into the league. And those guys carry their philosophies into other buildings. That's the next step for LaFleur. And maybe, just maybe, 2025 is the year it starts to happen. Maybe someone like Hafley turns heads. Maybe the offense continues to click and Stenavich gets interviews. Maybe LaFleur finally puts together a staff that isn't just cohesive, but elite, top to bottom. That's the challenge now, not just winning games, but building something bigger. But if LaFleur's coaching tree has yet to take root, there's one area where his influence has finally begun to show meaningful, measurable impact: the run defense. And let's be real here, this has been a pain point for the Packers for what feels like an eternity. Year after year, same story: missed tackles, bad angles, soft fronts, and defensive lines getting blown off the ball. But last year, something changed. It wasn't just better results on paper. It was a noticeable shift in approach and attitude. That's what Jeff Hafley brought. Before Hafley, under Joe Barry, the Packers were stuck in this ultra-conservative, white box, keep it in front of you style of defense. And it just didn't work. Barry's units were consistently bottom tier against the run, DVOA, EPA per play, yards allowed, pick your metric. It was all bad. The philosophy was rooted in the idea of avoiding explosive plays, sitting back into high safety shells, and hoping offenses would get impatient. But the problem was, the Packers still gave up explosives, and they couldn't stop the run to save their lives. You can't sit in light boxes and still be soft at the point of attack. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Green Bay Packers, and don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers are beginning to swirl around the NFL as speculation grows about T.J. Watt's potential interest or lack thereof in joining the Green Bay Packers. The Pittsburgh Steelers superstar linebacker has long been a fixture in the Steel City, and despite the constant churn of rumors that comes with being one of the league's most dominant defenders, Watt has remained focused on his current team. Still, the rumor mill never sleeps. According to sources close to the situation, Watt was recently approached informally. It seems about the possibility of one day suiting up in green and gold. His response was reportedly short and definitive: not interested right now. While that may seem like a closed door, the key word here might be now. There's no denying the intrigue of Watt joining his brothers JJ and Derek in their Wisconsin-rooted football legacy, born and raised in Pewaukee. T.J. Watt grew up just outside of Milwaukee and played his college ball at the University of Wisconsin. His ties to the state are deep and well documented, fueling hopes among Packers fans that the prodigal son could someday return. From Green Bay's perspective, bringing in Watt would be a dream scenario, a homegrown superstar, still in his prime, bolstering a defense that's always just a few pieces away from greatness. But the timing may not yet be right. Watt is still under contract with the Steelers and continues to play at an elite level, showing no signs of slowing down for now. Loyalty and unfinished business in Pittsburgh seem to be taking precedence. Still, the NFL is a league built on change, and nothing stays static for long. Watt's not interested now comment has left a crack in the door, one that Packers fans and NFL insiders alike will surely keep an eye on. Could we see Watt in Lambeau Field in the future? For now, it's just a whisper, but sometimes whispers turn into headlines. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Green Bay Packers, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.